Welcome back to Morbidly Bewitched. In the last video, I talked about mausoleums, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about what happens when mausoleums go wrong. Stay tuned. So despite the gorgeous facade of a mausoleum looking clean cut, deciding to keep decomposing bodies above ground can obviously come with complications. There is a very real possibility of leakage through the front, where people can see when they come to visit. Oh dear. And without wanting to sound too dramatic, coffins can explode in a mausoleum. Now this is rare, but it has happened on a few occasions. When a body isn't adequately embalmed, then naturally during the decomposing process, the body will begin to bloat. And when you take that kind of pressure inside a contained unit, the inevitable is going to happen, and the lid of the coffin can quite literally explode off the rest of the coffin. This is why it is advised that before the chamber is sealed, the casket lid should be cracked open just a small amount to allow the coffin to burp in the event of this scenario taking place, which means you're not going to get an exploding coffin, you're just going to get a lot of seepage, which is slightly better than an explosion, I think. However, apart from exploding lids and leakage, there is a secondary worry when it comes to mausoleums, and it's not with the cadavers themselves, but rather their accommodation. Like I explained in my last video, the chamber that you get for your burial plot in a mausoleum is rented. It's not outright, you don't own it outright. But what happens if the ownership themselves, the people who own the building, go bust? This has happened with a few establishments across America, but the mausoleum I'm going to talk about today is the Roger Williams Park. Resting place for over 500 people and is located in Cranston, Rhode Island, United States of America. Completed by contractors to Thomas Cullinan's specifications in 1926 and opened in 1927. It is a beautiful 3-story stone private mausoleum. Mr. Thomas Cullinan died in 1938, and he left the sole care of the mausoleum to his 2 daughters, Helen and Catherine. Helen died in 2000 and Catherine then died in 2002. The only problem being they did not do what their father did and put provisions and instructions in place for the care of the mausoleum after their own demise, which means the entire building was left to nobody and essentially abandoned. With all man-made structures, they need maintained. Someone needs to keep up with the maintenance of these buildings, or they will eventually be reclaimed by nature, as always. With the change in seasons and the times, the deterioration of the roof was the first to go, letting in the elements. This did irreversible damage, with snow and rain making its way down through the structure and the building. This caused so much damage, and that's not to mention the small animals now using it for shelter, and vandals and grave robbers. Oh yes, that's correct. At times like this, we sometimes see the truly deprived members of the public exploit tragic circumstances with prized open caskets and stolen belongings and valuables from the deceased. With the sheer volume of structure damage, the building itself was condemned in 2005 as unsafe by the city of Cranston and fenced off to try and stop vandals and further grave robbers making their way inside. But to no avail. When they put up sheets of plywood to cover the windows and the doorways, they just get ripped off and people get in somehow. The retrieval and relocation of the bodies inside the mausoleum has gone on for years, but it's not that straightforward. With approximately $6,000 required per body to uplift and relocate, the state themselves just do not have the funding to provide this kind of service on this scale. This means that it has been left up to the families of the bodies that's left behind to essentially rescue their own loved ones. But they are in the exact same predicament financially as the state. They don't have that kind of money to just go and collect Uncle Jimmy to get him relocated to a cemetery. So it's still ongoing. In 2019, some of the bodies were uplifted and relocated to the Rhode Island Veterans Cemetery, but there's estimated about 400 remains still within the mausoleum. That is a huge number of deceased within the premises. And with the building now fallen to rack and ruin, the state are saying that the entire structure is going to need razed to the ground, which leaves this ever-bearing threat to all of the families involved that they may be too late to rescue their loved ones. So it's a really dire situation. We're now in 2022 and it is still a very real ongoing concern with no true light at the end of the tunnel for these people. It's very tragic. The vandals and the robbers have not stopped. They just prise open whatever piece of wood's put up and they make their way in, and the place has been left in a tip. It's really quite sad. Nothing has been discussed for the future. What happens with the bodies? The state can't afford to relocate them. Families can't afford to relocate them. The building needs razed to the ground because it is in such a state of disarray. So there's an impasse that seems like something out of a horror. Do you raise the building to the ground with everyone still in it? Nobody is talking about the future of this mausoleum and what happens with who's left behind. And it's very sad. So there you have it. That is one story of a few that would be dotted across America regarding mausoleums and what happens when the ownership falls through. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about crypts. So please subscribe and I will see you soon.